Hey everybody, welcome back. This is my friend Francois.
Hello.
We are in Las Vegas right now. I am at the Hard Rock Hotel, and if you couldn't tell, we are sitting on the floor with the sofa behind us because I did not think about how to record a show while I was here. Should have thought of that. I'm at this event called Thrive, Make Money Matter, and it's for-purpose entrepreneurs. And what that means is that entrepreneurs should grow a for-profit business, get really rich, and do a lot of good with their money. There are so many ways to do that, either by giving to charity, creating jobs, training, there's a million ways. But this event in the fall, that was September 2018, I guess, is where I met this guy. And honestly, he was hugely responsible for where I am right now, where I am in my life, where I am in my business. We just connected and we talked.
Right away.
Yeah.
I know on camera, it seems like we know each other for a long time. For the most part, we've only known each other for like a week.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Not even. I mean, if we talked for a couple hours over the course of last time and this time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank God, too. He was my lifeline. The first night we were at this bar. I'm not a bar person. Calvin introduced us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank God because I could talk to someone all night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we just had a great conversation. We just got to know each other, and I was a little surprised. It seemed like we read a lot of the same books. We just had a lot of the same ambitions. We just didn't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
So that's how we were able to connect, and pretty proud of her to be able to do something like this. Hopefully I can create good enough content for the people that is watching this today.
You absolutely will. I don't have the content. That's why I'm bringing people on. And I'll tell you all very openly and honestly, I'm sitting here in the lobby and I am terrified right now. Having people walk by while I'm sitting here on camera, like A, I'm on camera, B, it's going to be on YouTube for the whole internet to see, and C, there's like strangers walking by.
Right.
I'm terrified.
All right.
But I'm doing
let's
it.
dive in. Let's go. Let's dive in.
Okay, so I guess why you're here is because I think you have an interesting school story and now an interesting adult, professional, business kind of story. And those are the stories I want to share.
Okay. Very cool. So, again, my name is Francois. I grew up in Warsaw, Indiana. What I do now, so I do a number of things. I bet a lot on sports. I buy and sell things on eBay and Amazon. I'm just not a one-trick pony. I believe that you just have to. There's a lot to do out there, and there's a lot of ways to make money. And I'm just a person just interested in trying to do as much as I can. Not really interested in just one business. There's so many facets of life, and I'm just interested in trying to make a living for myself.
I think that's awesome. And every entrepreneur on that stage that I've been at for the last 3 days, I think would all say multiple streams of income.
Absolutely.
You don't want to have just one thing, especially as we're going potentially into a recession, that you need multiple streams of income to be successful.
And in today's day and age, it's possible. If you have a smartphone, things are way more possible than people honestly realize. Say, like, if we were to do this 50 years ago, we would not have the same opportunity. It's just so weird to really think about it, that we were literally born at the perfect spectrum where all of this technology is being boomed out, and like the internet is the biggest equalizer to everything for us to be able to connect with each other.
Yeah, to connect and to learn. Mm-hmm. Like, we can learn so much just by looking at something on our phones.
Absolutely.
We don't have to sit in a classroom for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least we can learn something different from our phones.
And so a little bit of a background with me. Again, grew up in Indiana. I was kind of just deemed as an average student. I just realized later on that I just had a reading disorder, and so I remember being elementary school, being the kid taken out of class and being put in a special class with other students because I just couldn't do the reading assignment. I couldn't figure it out, and I felt like I was a little sheltered in that spectrum.
But you constantly consume information now.
Absolutely. Even today, reading is not the easiest thing for me. I have to read something like 3 or 4 times before I actually get it. I find it so annoying, but it's important to always try and push yourself. As much as I would like to think that, like, oh man, it would have been so much easier if I read a sentence, if I got it right away, then cool, I can go to the next. But it was not how my brain was geared towards.
That's devotion.
Mm-hmm.
So you said average student. What does that mean to you or to your school?
So average student. So I guess in high school, there was 500 kids in my graduating class.
Wow, that's so small. I think mine had like 2,000.
Graduating class?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow,
I think.
Wait, your whole entire high school was 2,000, or just your graduating class?
I think it was my graduating class, but maybe I'm wrong. That does sound really big, doesn't it?
That sounds humongous because, like, our class was one of the biggest it had ever been, and then we had a really big high school. Or I was a 5A. Our high school was like a 5 or 6A or whatever the thing with sports. Yeah.
I'll have to look at that because.
Okay. Yeah. And I was pretty much I was in the middle tier. Like, I was top 150 in my class. Like,
well, that's a lot better than average.
I mean, like, you show.
Was it personally average? Like,
yeah.
you?
Well, I mean, like, if you show up to class, I mean, like, if you remotely listen to it, then like you can still be in the top like 300. And so, like,
if you turn in some work, you're probably going to be
already,
okay.
And so, like, I was in between that. Like,
and that's something that drives me crazy is I feel like our kids aren't really even learning in school, especially now. Like, if you just scribble something on your paper and turn it in, you're probably at least going to pass.
Absolutely.
And great for passing, but we're in school to learn. So if you're going to go to school, you should be in a position where you can learn, not just scribble something and get an A.
Fun fact, I guess I did AP Physics my senior year of high school, and they score 1 to 5 this year. I got a 1, and you get a 1 for just signing your name. So, like, that shows, like, I just literally thought I was really stupid. Like, it's just, thankfully though, I got into college, went to Purdue University, graduated with a personal finance degree. I honestly thought I was going to be a stockbroker, just go into the corporate world and, like, just make sales and something kind of like the Wolf of Wall Street and just kind of be like Jordan Belfort and just try and make a lot of money. And no, I just realized that just listening to podcasts, I remember listening to a guy named Rich Roll, and he talked about the American dream is just a lie. And he was in his mid-40s, corporate lawyer, just on the corporate route, had a house, white picket fence, and like a family, and he just wasn't happy. And he was like, no, I mean, there's more to life than just this. And so I got lucky and listened to I heard that at 22. I'm 28 now, so it's not that far.
Another youngin'.
Right, and it just made me, like, kind of sit back and just realize, oh my gosh, like, why am I trying to make a lot of money? Why am I trying to get a big house? Like, it made me try and reevaluate, like, am I trying to impress somebody else, or, like, who am I trying to impress? And so it's just, now I'm just looking at things that make me happy.
So what is it that's important to you? What are your values that aren't necessarily the house with the picket fence? Which, by the way, someone here this weekend showed me a picture of someone who converted a school bus into an RV, which,
That's awesome.
If you don't know, we've been living in an RV for the last year. And they put a picket fence in the top window just to say they had the white picket fence and to be funny. But what are your values? Like, what do you focus on now rather than chasing the money?
Yeah.
What do you chase?
I'm honestly just chasing happiness. One of the things that, like, I see a lot of people, or the people that really inspire me are the people that are trying to leave a legacy, just leave their mark on the world. It's so crazy how fast a year goes by, and, like, how much of an impact can you make on someone else's life, even though you're not aware of that. And There's so many people that like have inspired me, and I hope that I can help a younger generation. Like, oh yeah, like I probably grew up just like you, had the dream of a lot of money and all that, and but like I had no idea how to obtain that.
Yeah. And I'm never aspired to a lot of money. I grew up very comfortable. I had everything given to me that I ever wanted, and you know, my family makes ends meet right now, and we're comfortable. And being here this weekend has really led me to thinking it's okay to have a lot of money. There was a time when I almost despised the idea, and I thought it meant that I was selfish. And now I'm realizing, like, if I have the potential to make a lot of money, and then I can give back and leave a legacy and help people with the money that I'm making, wow, why am I not making that money? It's selfish of me not to.
Something that I live my life based off of is any place if I'm put in a situation, I want to make sure that that situation was better, that I was in it the moment I leave than before.
I love that. I love that.
It can be as simple as like you go to a restaurant and like you just clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
It's literally as simple as that. And then if you make habits like that of trying to make whatever, even like people you interact with on a daily basis, can you make their life a little bit better by just your presence, by just saying hi? And maybe you hear it all the time, but it is real. I'm captivated by those people that the moment they walk into anywhere, their presence, their energy is real. Like you feel better just for their presence. And I just wanted to, like, I know I somewhat have that effect, but it can be taught. It's not a, like, yes. And like these speakers at this event, a lot of them, when they just show up at the stage, they just captivate an audience. I don't know what it is. Are they smarter than you and I? Probably not.
Maybe some of them.
Maybe. But a lot of them just learn how to communicate, and just it's so crazy to look at. We can only like see from where they're at now. We don't know them from when they were like in the gutter.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you hear them tell their stories, because now that's how a lot of speakers are connecting with the audience, through telling their own stories, you realize they had terrible failures. And oftentimes not just one, but many. Like rags to riches stories multiple times. But what's different is that they kept going. They didn't stop. They didn't give up. They didn't make complaints. They said, okay, I'm going to begin again. Jason, my husband, listens to Sam Harris.
Okay.
And is doing his meditation program. And one of them, something he said was, begin again. Just begin again. And every moment can be a new moment. And I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, and many of these people on stage sucked in school. They got in trouble all the time, or they failed, or they dropped out. They were all different in some way. And now they're on stage teaching the people who want to be like them.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I understand we're here to just we understand that the school system is broken, but it is needed, all right? I mean, you still need to go to school because I don't know if kids really understand this. I mean, all they know is that their parents tell them go to school, or that's what everyone else does. The reason why you're in school, or the reason why grades are created, is it's to teach you how to learn how to do things. Homework, your teacher really doesn't care if you get an A on it. The thing that they care about is that did you do the work, and it's a mini training platform to like, oh, you need to learn how to learn. That's essentially what school is for. I think that's what a lot of like public school forgets, that is that your goal is to learn how to learn. It's not to get straight A's. Like, yeah, it's easier if everything works out in a conformed space, but life doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, and I think if you're getting straight A's, you're probably not learning that
Probably
much.
not,
like,
no.
I got straight A's.
Yeah.
I was the kid who always had an A. I did my work and I studied, probably a lot more than I needed to because I thought I was supposed to. But sure, I can read, I can write, clearly. But real learning, I don't think really happened to me. I didn't learn how to think.
Yeah. And
how to make my own judgments.
I hear that all the time. Like, oh, yeah, these really smart people, they talk about, like, yeah, these schools, they just don't let kids learn how to think. I don't know how you teach a kid unless you literally throw someone in a really uncomfortable environment. It's the only way you're really ever going to learn. It is actually the ultimate test. And when you put yourself in something just so uncomfortable, instead of just being so worried about it, it's if you change your mindset and just say, okay, like, this is tough. Let's see what I can do.
Yeah, and it's okay to be in those hard situations, but we have to equip the students with how to deal with them. And that's what I see too, is a lot of times the language that I hear in the classroom, or that teachers have said to me in IEP meetings or parent-teacher conferences or through email, is like, I have heard teachers say, you're being lazy. I have heard, and okay, there are kids who are lazy, right? But a lot of times these are kids who aren't. They're kids who are really trying.
Yep.
And I've heard teachers say, you're being lazy if you would only just be more mature. But if you're talking to a student with ADHD, they're chronologically 2 to 3 years less mature than their same age peers.
Okay.
You can't just tell them to act more mature and think it's going to happen like that. We have to equip them. When we say things like, well, you're just not trying hard enough. If you just tried harder, you would be able to get the answer to that problem. And those are things that are creating stress and anxiety instead of teaching the kids how to deal with being in difficult situations. I think we need to change our language and our approach.
I completely agree. It actually goes back to a teacher, my physics teacher back in high school. I just had a difficult time doing a homework assignment, and so I just had to come in really early in the morning, and I remember just coming into his classroom. He always came in at like 5:30 in the morning and just always did work. He's like, yeah, I'm always here every single day, so if you guys need help with homework, just come in early and I'll see if I can help you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I remember coming into his like first week and I just couldn't understand an assignment. I remember I walked up to him like, hey, I don't know how to do this. And this is my senior year of high school. I'm getting ready to go to college, and like, he just looked at me and he's like, yeah, I don't answer statements. And then like he just...
Oh, what a great response.
And then I like, again, this is like me being in elementary school, middle school, and high school, and it's always me going up to a teacher, hey, I don't understand how you do this, and the teacher just does it for me. I'm like, oh, cool.
Right.
And that was just one of the biggest like being put in that moment, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you don't I was befuddled. Like, I was like, wait, what are you? And he was like, go sit down and ask me a question that I can answer, but I don't answer statements. Yeah. I literally just then went back to my desk and just tried to do the assignment again, and I literally just sat there for an hour. Didn't help me. Like, just... Yeah.
Did you not know how to reframe?
I didn't understand. I was like, wait, you're a teacher. You're supposed to tell me the answer so I can figure it out. He wouldn't do that, and so...
Good for him.
Yeah. One, looking back now, that's amazing, but... That's one of the things that, like, it was a life lesson that I never understood, is that you don't, it's, in order to actually educate yourself, you need to be able to ask the right questions.
Yes.
And the right questions will honestly lead you to that thinking process that we talked about. And so, I think that's just such valuable information, is that, like, students today, like, you look at it, or you can think of how many times you've gone up to the teacher and like, hey, I don't know how to do this, and like, for the teacher to save time, they just do it for you.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Every single day.
And I tried very hard not to do that with my students, and I would recognize that was happening. And I tried to approach it with well, tell me what you do know. You know, most recently I taught writing, and if there was something, you know, let's say we were doing a grammar concept, and they're like, I don't know how to do this. Or sometimes they would even ask me, what's the answer?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
How can I have a fourth grader asking me, what's the answer? What have you been doing for the last 4 years? And getting your teachers to answer every question for you?
And, well, the weird things were, like, questions like math. Because we kind of think of, like, math is critical thinking. but there's only one answer. And so, like, eventually, like, I understand students, they'll get stubborn enough, they're like, oh, if I hold out long enough, the teacher will just give it to me.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, they play the game and they make it work. It works. It's worked for years. But, like, things with, like, English and, like, other subjects, there's no right answer. Sometimes, I don't think people just realize, sometimes the questions you ask, there's never a right answer.
Yeah.
And
sometimes in school we're expecting a certain answer, and that may
mm-hmm.
not be
and
what we should be doing.
And I think it's just a scary thing is that, like, oh, then what's the point of being here? And I'm like, no, you're here to learn.
Right.
You're learning how to learn, and just understand that, guess what? Like, life is tough. No one cares.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Everyone's out for themselves, and you just need to, like, be willing to, like, face the facts. And I grew up in a very comfortable town. I think our high school has one of the highest graduating rates. Like, no one really ever drops out. I think it was like 95% of students.
Yeah, I think mine was 98%.
Yeah,
was
some absolutely
crazy.
ridiculous. And so, like, I don't know anyone in my high school that dropped out of high school. It's just the life that I was instilled, is education, and then from there college. I'm happy that I was put in that environment. I was not hurting for food or, like, wondering how I'm gonna get home safe. Looking back now, I always had that. But when you're put in the real world, when you move to a big city, guess what? People don't have the same values as you, and you just have to learn to accept that. And it took me a couple of years to, like, as I'm living in a big city, I'm like, wait, you stealing is like, you steal? Like, why are you stealing stuff from me? Like, that's just human dynamic. Just understand that it's out there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So, when you were in school, did you ever have teachers, like, criticize certainly not your work ethic? It seems like you were a hard worker. Did you ever
was
feel
never the problem? Yeah, it was
like you just weren't good enough? Did you ever get that feeling from the outside?
Yeah, I just remember just being in those elementary school, just being in those classrooms where we just had different, like, spelling words that we had to do, and just, like, we had to go back to, like, basic things that we had already learned. And I'm like, man, I'm looking around at these other peers. I'm like, no offense, I just think I'm smarter than you guys, but I don't know how to, like, how this works. I remember doing things like accelerated reading, and I couldn't do it. Like, I remember my dad just talking to the teacher. He's like, yeah, for some reason you just don't have any reading your reading comprehension is really bad. And he would just tell me that, and I'm like, but I'm trying. And he's like, try harder. Like, it's and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing hard. Like,
well, and comprehension is usually very poorly taught in school.
Okay.
Often it's read this, answer these questions.
Yeah, and
that's not teaching comprehension. That's doing comprehension or showing comprehension, but it's not teaching the art of comprehension. And that drives me crazy. I see so many kids going to tutors where they're literally just reading a passage and answering questions.
Yeah.
And, like, that's not, for most kids, that's not helping, because that's what they're having trouble doing in the first place. So the act of doing it isn't teaching. It's not helping with that learning process. You have to actually teach how to comprehend. So do you think or know if your difficulty was actual comprehension, or did you have trouble reading the words, which then affected your comprehension?
I had a lot of trouble reading the words.
Okay.
It was never ever gonna work. Even like in college when teachers call on you to read the textbook, like, it's the most nerve-wracking. It was the worst thing for me, because if I'm in front of a stage, in front of people, I'm really comfortable with talking to people now. But if you're reading the same thing I'm reading, you'll literally realize that, like, I'm just fumbling the words and I'm just saying the wrong things. And, like, I always thought it was a defect. And I just remember, like, how often I had to try and read a whole entire page before everybody else, just in case a teacher called on me, so that I at least had a general idea. And, like, it was a nightmare for me. It was just, but no one's fault. It was just, I couldn't figure it out. No one it wasn't until years later when like other people taught like gosh, who's the Shark Tank Damon Johnson.
Okay.
He talks in his book that he was dyslexic, and I believe Tim Tebow was dyslexic, Lewis Howes, and they talk about like their reading level like in high school was like a 6th grade level. I'm like, oh, that was me.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly me too. Like I don't understand why I don't feel like I'm stupid, but clearly like academia world I am. Like it's just I'm not getting the grades that I think I should be getting, but I mean that's of course a biased opinion, but
you probably, my suspicion would be you fall into the twice exceptional category where you have gifted IQ. Do you know what your IQ score is?
No, not at all.
So my suspicion would be you're gifted. Like your IQ is above average, if not higher. But you struggled with reading, dyslexia, or whatever it may have been, but because you were so smart, you could compensate and figure out a way to get the information in that you needed and put it out the way you needed it. And I think it must be so hard to exist like that in the world.
It's just really silly because like the questions that I would miss, if a teacher were to read that out to me, I could answer it.
Yes.
Like I would literally just tell them the answer right there, and they're like, "Why didn't you put that down?" I'm like, "Oh, I thought that word and that word. It was a different question. Sorry, that's why I answered it the way I did." But I mean, I still got to see. Like they didn't change it for me. That's so. But like at the time of me being in school, I'm in that one-track mind of gotta get. I mean, I grew up in an Asian household. Straight A's is what is expected. Like you're expected to be perfect. You're expected to that trajectory of, hey, go home, do homework, and don't leave your room until you finish it. Like this. And they like it's kind of like your parents belittle you, like, hey, we work hard, so you don't have to. And I'm like, no, I think I'm working hard too. But they're like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a little kid, and so it's a little painful listening to like. But that's just Asian household. That's an Asian culture thing. I wish I could change it, but like, hey, I grew up the same way too. But I've learned as I've gotten out of college and like experienced life. I've been really fortunate. My parents have allowed me to travel to like Paris, Germany, been to Cartagena, Colombia, been to Vietnam a couple times. Like life goes on, and like there is someone just like you in a different state, in a different country. But like maybe you just don't realize how fortunate you are to be living in this time frame right now, and you have YouTube, or you have access to YouTube to watch things and just be able to learn. For me personally, I think the best way I've learned how to do things is just literally looking through YouTube and then just applying what I think I've learned. And then the ultimate thing of learning is once you apply it, see what works for you. If it doesn't work, then fine. It's not necessarily wrong. You learn something along the way. And so you just try to continue to always apply that. And if something simple is if all you wanted to do was just get 1% better every single week, I mean, just scratch like learning a whole entire like language or whatever you're try and get 1% better every single week. What happens in a year? You're 52% better than you were that starting point. Like if you set small goals, you'd be surprised at how many big goals you accomplish along the way.
Absolutely. Someone there this weekend posted on the board, like, if you took just 2 hours a day to work on your business and then went through the math, how many hours that would be a week, a month, a year, and looked at it, it was like, wow. Like, I always complain, I try not to complain, but I don't have a lot of time to work on my business. And I do carve out the time to do it, and I need to do it more. But then looking at those numbers, which I could have calculated myself, but seeing them out there on the screen and seeing this successful person tell me, and I totally forget who it was, it might have been Cole Hatter, who's the organizer, realizing, like, why am I not doing 2 hours a day? I can do 2 hours a day. If at worst I could do an hour and a half a day, because I use the local YMCA as my office, because our membership there includes an hour and a half a day of childcare.
Nice. Okay.
And actually, it's 3 hours. It's an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. So if I really needed to, I could go there twice a day. And it's a place my kids like to go. It's not like I'm ditching my family.
Yeah. Have you ever considered that? That's like one of the biggest advantages you have is that hour and a half that you have, you have to knuckle down. That is your time. And like,
exactly. I can't be wasted.
Yeah, and other people that just, they have like, maybe you accomplish more in that hour and a half than someone, say, sits in the office for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Like, you actually have other things, like you have a family on the side. And like, have you ever considered that as like a huge leverage for you that you have to?
I think it is, because I have to be very purposeful about every action I take. Do I always take the right one? No. I sometimes pick the wrong ones, or sometimes I pick the more personally rewarding one over the one I'm supposed to be doing or really need to be doing, and I do that sometimes, but I have to be very conscious about every choice I make. And my progress is slow because I only have that time, but at the same time I think it is an advantage because...
It's funny you just said slow, but progress is progress.
It is progress.
Yeah, I think you're just putting on a timeline of somebody else's when you said it's slow.
Right.
No, it's not that. Hey, you at least are doing something.
Yeah.
It's the biggest. Taking action is the biggest thing.
And I have, when I first met you, I was not online. I was 100% in person. By January, so I met you in September.
Yep.
I think it was September. By January, I was 100% online.
Okay.
Now I'm taking on new clients.
Wow.
And now I'm launching a YouTube show and a whole new program.
As she has kids too. Like just
I do have two kids.
And like running a family as well. Like, holy crap.
It's like, and I forget that. I'm like, man, I need to be rich. I need to be rich now. I have all these things I want to do with my money. One of you who's listening, I want to take you with me in my RV and travel for a year. And then the next one of you, I want to take you overseas and bring you with me.
That'd be awesome.
I need to
Thailand?
be rich now.
Right.
Yeah. But I think we all have to reflect on those successes. And I'm not saying this to be like, hey, look what I've done. I'm saying it to say, all of you have done something. All of you. Whether it's the fact that you wrote your name on that paper for the first time, or you showed up to school, with your homework that you did, one piece of homework that you did, not all of it, one piece, and you remembered to turn it into your teacher. Celebrate that. Even if no one else is.
Of course.
Celebrate it. Because I know often when you go to school, they want, like, if you're at that 0 performance level, they want 100, or they at least want 80. You're not going to get there right away. I'm not going to get there right away. But you just take that one action. And you celebrate it, and then the next day you take the same action and the same action. And when that becomes a habit, then you can add the next one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know we're transitioning over to habits right now. So like in terms of the habits that I do daily, I do very simple things. Like I try to just always have a morning routine. That's the most important thing. I always make my bed in the morning. I think that's like one of the very first things I ever do is when I wake up, I just want to make sure my bed looks as nice as possible after.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
I don't make my bed.
It's okay.
I make it before I get into bed at night. Because my husband likes to have a make bed, so I make it for him.
Okay.
And by make it, I mean we're sleeping on an air mattress right now because we don't have furniture in our house. I just pull up the blanket a little bit.
Well, one thing that I just really like is that it's a really weird habit because parents tell kids to do that all the time, and I never understood it growing up. / my mom used to make my bed all the time, and I just never understood okay, what's the big deal? It is a big deal because it's the first thing you accomplish in the morning. That's the accomplishment that you're trying to. By you being able to make a perfect bed, that will propel you to what other things you're gonna accomplish that very next day. It's kind of just check marking every little. I mean, you're setting a priority, and then it's you checking it off, saying that cool, I accomplished it. Yeah. Eventually, it becomes no big deal, and it just becomes a daily habit. But I think that's one of the most important things is make your bed, because if you and the ultimate equalizer is only you know if you did a good job or not. No one's going to care. All right, I understand that, but the fact that you can put great pride in what you do, and that's the first thing you do in the morning, that's the important thing. If you instill that first habit, what else are you going to try and accomplish? You're chasing that, like,
we're driven by reward.
Yes.
And when you set out to do something and you do it, you get, I don't know all the hormones involved.
Yeah.
Dopamine or
and
serotonin
I think the most important
whatever
thing
it is.
honestly learn to reward yourself and just like you said, take joy in your accomplishment. I take great joy in that every single day. And then when I go to bed, or when I go home or I had a long day at work, guess what? When I come home, I see a very nicely made bed, and so it makes me feel way more comfortable. Again, I'm not gonna beat myself up if I woke up late to work, so guess what? I didn't have time. It happens. But if you can try and do that often enough, it just becomes a daily routine. And then things like showing up early or always showing up on time, it becomes very important to you. I understand it. In American culture, it's not that important to always show up on time. Everyone's 15 minutes late to everything. But if you show that, hey, you take great pride on, hey, show up on time, do all the necessary things beforehand, you're going to be ahead of 80% of the people that in this world. And so, if you really do think about it, you don't have to be the smartest person. You just need to show up on time, or understand that has to become a habit, your daily habit of that. And then you slowly learn that your word becomes more important to you, and you take greater pride in every single aspect of your life. Oh my gosh, how much more are you accomplishing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for teens who are struggling to get up in the morning? Because that's what teens do. They stay up late. Their sleep cycles are actually shifted.
Yeah, of course.
And I did too.
Mm-hmm.
Their sleep cycles are different than ours. Typically, they do stay naturally. Their bodies want to stay up later at night and wake up earlier. And I have what's called delayed sleep phase syndrome, and have a few clients diagnosed with it, which basically is that, where essentially you're a night owl. For me, I get my best sleep in the early morning hours. I have since retrained myself. I get up at ideally 4:45. It's not always 4:45. Sometimes I try to do earlier. It's not always earlier. It's not perfect for me. But I've retrained so I can do that. But for the people we're talking to, they don't want to get out of bed in the morning.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's, of course, who does? Is not that fun.
Some people do. Some people just my husband, just
a go-getter.
I'm ready. Yeah, and someone on the stage this weekend was like, I don't know, what excites you to get out of bed? What is going to make you just jump out of bed and seize the day?
I know this is maybe a little different. I recommend no caffeine. I just especially for a teenager, if you need coffee at when you're supposed to have a lot of energy, then what happens when you're older and I just see so many people doing caffeine and coffee and all this. You're tricking yourself into thinking that you have more or to get to the energy you need to. In order to try and motivate a teenage kid to wake up earlier, it just honestly has to be a personal goal. You just have to if the goal to wake up earlier in the morning so you can go work out. But why are you trying to work out? Oh, I played sports all through high school. Yeah, I worked out because I wanted to perform optimally on the field. I wanted to crush souls. Any sporting event, football, basketball, track, I wanted to beat my opponent. And so it's that self-motivation that I already had. But that's just sports. But any teenager, I do strongly just recommend find something you really like to do. And then from there, you're going to learn to say, okay, how can I get better faster? The best way to get better faster is just waking up earlier in the morning before anybody else wakes up. So, say a teenager, on their weekends, they usually wake up at 9 or 10 o'clock. What happens if, say 10 o'clock, what happens if you start waking up at just 8 o'clock? And then you're already beating 2 hours than your competitor or the same teenager that has the same goals as you. Guess what? Like you said, that 2 hours makes a big difference. But it's that self-motivation you just have to have. It's it can't be taught. There's nothing I can say to tell you oh man, this and this will happen. You just have to learn you have to learn that there's always things to accomplish in life, and only you can put more things on your own plate.
Yeah. And reward yourself if you're not getting rewarded externally by your family or your teachers or whatever. Like, find those rewards for yourself. And I don't mean, go have yourself an ice cream, but like, what are those mind rewards?
And a lot of things, something growing up, you just need to learn to be your own cheerleader.
Yes.
It's Instagram, social media, it's a little scary because you see all this glitz and glamour thing. You just got to learn that, like, hey, you're not at that spot. One day I would like to be, but hopefully you understand a lot of that is fake, and you just got to be able to, that's just a learning process of life. It's just being able to wake up in the morning and just like, okay, cool, today's a new day, I'm ready to kick some ass.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
What about gamifying the whole waking up thing? Like, what if, this is more to them, I mean, you can talk about it too, but like, what if you find another friend or two friends and you compete? Like, who can get up the earliest, or who can get up consistently a certain number of days in a row? Put some stakes in it, put some money into it, or someone has to buy the ice cream for everyone else,
But it's also a big thing is trying to find like-minded person like you that has the same goal, and so it's easy to push your guys. Like, if you find someone just like you that has the exact, like, the big thing is, can you find something you really like to do? Right, that's the biggest thing. Is I can't help anyone with that. You know you, and you know what you like, right? That's
and if you don't know, then you have to explore. You just
honestly
keep
do.
Listening and trying, and if you don't like reading, do
the
YouTube,
big thing
do
is
podcasts.
trying. Big thing is trying things out. You can read all you want. You can look at. Gotta go out there and explore, and only you know what will make you happy. From there, we have the internet, and you'll be able to find other people just like you. And then from there, it's you guys setting your own goals together, right? It can just start from 2 or 3 people, and guess what? Like, you'd be surprised by, you set a deadline, you try to accomplish that, you'd be surprised that, like, a lot more gets done when things are just put for, once you, like, create that path yourself.
And deadlines are important, especially if you have ADHD. Like,
I hate deadlines. I wish they don't, but it's the only way to actually, like, put you on track to just realize, hey, you have to focus. This is what you're, because if, say, like, oh, I want to I want to run a marathon. Cool, that's fantastic. But when are you gonna start training?
Right.
Why am I waking up early in the morning every single day just to, like, because if I set I want to run a marathon in 10 years, well, guess what? I don't need to start training until year 9. Like, I can tell myself that, but, like, that's the purpose of that. I'm sorry.
So I don't have a deadline. I don't have a launch date for my YouTube show, which we're recording right now. Help me make one. So what is it, June 2nd right now?
It's June 2nd right now.
June 2nd. I'm away this coming weekend.
Yeah, for the next 2 weeks. Do you want to try and do it by the end of July?
I want to do it before that.
Okay.
By the end of June.
End of June?
End of June. I have 3. With you, I have 3 interviews recorded. I have 3 more planned
How about
at least.
this? Try and at least have, because what I'm presuming will happen is that you already have the content, and so you're just editing everything.
Yes.
Let's try and just do it before July 4th, before the holidays, before it gets really
I go away that week. I'm away whatever that last day. I look at my phone, but we're recording on my phone right now, so I can't pull out my calendar.
Yeah, well, okay, cool. So last week of June, first week of July or whatever, let's try and, like, see if you can...
All right.
Yeah, I'll call you up and be like, hey, are you almost done?
All right.
I'll do that.
I might not even edit except where it becomes extraordinarily necessary.
Yeah.
Like, one of the videos I have to edit because it ended up being 2 Zoom calls and my background fell down, which I'm not going to edit out. But
that's funny.
The interruption and the merging in the videos, I'll edit that one. But, well, it didn't fall down. My child pulled it down.
Okay.
So maybe that Monday or Tuesday of July 4th week.
Okay.
Because I can set it to launch ahead of time, right? Like, I don't have to load it that day. I can set it ahead.
You know more than I do.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know anything. I was hoping you knew.
I mean, I've loaded up, like, YouTube videos before in the past and done daily vlogs and stuff. It's relatively easy once you just... I didn't know you could set it and forget it, but I
don't know. I'm asking.
Maybe you do.
Oh, we'll find out.
Yeah.
We'll let you know.
Yeah.
So, what's that in your hands?
So
I know what it is.
Yeah, so right in here is a Rubik's Cube. So this is kind of how Carrie and I kind of got to know each other, is that I'm kind of known as this person that can do it pretty fast. Hey, do you want to just mix it up for me really quick?
So I struggle to even mix these up.
It's all good. But I realized that this was not something I learned overnight. It was a movie that I watched was The Pursuit of Happiness. It was happening right when I was out in high school. And there was a part of it where the guy just solves a Rubik's Cube in the middle of his job interview type thing. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I spent about a month just trying to figure out how to do a Rubik's Cube. Not going much through YouTube or anything, just trial and error.
So you did a trial and error.
Kind of, but I had help with other people that could solve it to like help me out with certain steps.
I know 2 kids who did it, learned through YouTube.
Okay.
And
they
just
learn
like
in
do
like
it all
a
the time
week.
now.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
What color do you want to see first?
Blue.
Blue's
Blue's my
first.
favorite.
Okay. No problem at all. I always like to let people decide what. Sorry.
No, you're good.
What color they want to see first, and like I let them mix it up because I want them to feel like they're a part of the trick. But she asked for blue, and here's your blue right here.
Did you notice he was doing that while he was talking to me?
It's just a normal thing. I sometimes forget that it looks really cool.
It does look. I mean, I've never been able to solve a Rubik's Cube. Not a single time.
There's a rapper named Logic that can actually freestyle as he does this, and that's to me is unbelievable. Like in terms of like, because that takes so much thinking, and like it just makes it look like he's not putting in any effort whatsoever.
And what you have to realize if you're looking at this, like Francois is thinking about what he's saying. He's seeing the Rubik's Cube, so he's using his visual spatial skills. I guess that's how you solve a Rubik's Cube.
Oh.
And then like what you see and the shape and the orientation. And then I think you use algorithms, like you know when you see certain patterns, that there's certain movements that you have to do. Mm-hmm. So he's thinking and processing all of these things at the same time while he's having a conversation. Yeah. So that's a really awesome brain right there.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad some of the teachers didn't think I was that smart growing up.
Which is a shame.
It happens. You can't please everybody in this world. Alright, so I'm almost done with this. Did you want me to do the rest eyes closed?
Yeah!
Okay.
And if you can't tell on the video, his eyes really are closed.
Yeah. 4 and then 1, 2, 3, I believe. Yeah.
Look at that. And you said you do this sometimes when you're speaking?
Yeah, so I did it. So in terms of speaking itself, what I've done before in the past is kind of just talk to students and kids or pretty much anyone. What's the definition of success? And it kind of goes back to just the daily habits you do. And it's kind of funny how this whole thing happened with that. Is I was just doing that speech and I saw this kid with the Rubik's Cube in front of him, and I told him like, oh hey, I can do that and like no one believed me, and so as I was doing my speech, I was doing it in front of everybody. And
at the time, did you know you could
I knew I could remotely do it at
yeah.
What I like realized is that hey, I kind of use it as a crutch so that like as I'm stumbling and getting to know the audience, they're all infatuated with my Rubik's Cube and they're all paying attention to that. And so I've realized that it just after I get done and show everyone that, it seems like everyone likes to listen to me, whatever I have to say, just because it's just a little different. And again, the ending part with my eyes closed, I've never really seen anyone else do it besides me. And I just figured it out over time where I'm like, oh yeah, there's a pattern to it, and if you do something over and over again, eventually you get to it. So.
Do you have a photographic memory? Did I already ask you that?
I don't think you have.
Okay.
I don't think I mean, like, if I did, then, like, reading would be a lot easier, right?
I don't know. Not necessarily, because if you're struggling with reading the words.
But
I'm wondering with this, like, how you could do it with your eyes closed. You saw...
Oh, I'm just
where
counting. It's from, once it gets to a point, I just know that, like, it takes 4 twists, 2 twists. Like, so, like, when I tell you, hey, do you want to see me do the rest with my eyes closed or behind my back? I'm actually looking at the cube too and just counting like, okay, 4, 2, 2, and 4.
So at that point, you already have the plan, or you're formulating the plan.
Well, and I just tie it all together, and so it seems seamless, but I'm still actually problem solving at the moment that but like I want that person to feel like they're part of the trick, and so like it seems instantaneous, but it's not. It's just a lot of it's kind of a trick to like it's a show, of course, but like I think it's a really neat trick that I've never seen anyone else do it.
Did you get that? He's problem solving while he's talking to you. The kid who had a hard time reading.
But
in school.
Realize that kids that have problems communicating or just learning how to do. If you put that mindset of you set a question and you try and problem solve it in that moment. It's not easy, but it gets easier over time. And like the more stresses, the more often you put yourself in that situation, you'd be surprised how much more you're trying to accomplish. Or like you go after like, oh, cool, I crushed that conversation from my problem solving. And then like you just learn that like those skills like tie over to other facets of life. So,
and I think too, it's okay to ask for help. Like if you are feeling different and you don't understand why, it's okay to ask for help, whether it's from your parents or a teacher you trust, or a family member, whatever. Like, just have that conversation.
Of course.
And that's okay. I love having those conversations with my kids. Sadly, they tell me my brain is broken. My brain doesn't work. Like, nobody loves me. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And it's heartbreaking, but like...
The hard thing, though, is that, like, congratulations if you're able to ask for help. That is a step. That is honestly a skill.
And recognizing you need it in the first place is a skill.
And that's just you being self-aware and, like, there's nothing wrong with that. The next step of that progress is learning to ask the correct question to help. Like, everyone is different, right? Like, how I was able to learn that is just how I guess like you deem me as smart is because I think the only thing I do is I've learned to ask really good questions. It's not that I've learned to just change phrases around so that I understand it better, and then the better you understand it, you're able to retain that, and then you just put it in the back of your head until like that has to come back out, right? You just realize there's so many like the brain is the most fascinating thing in the world, and like I was told that the brain technically is so bright that it remembers every single thought, every single word, every single aspect of it. It's all stored in your brain.
It's in there. It's just you have to figure out how to retrieve it. Yeah.
And I think that's just like, oh my goodness, that's in every single human being. It's not just me. It's not just her. We're just on camera, like, explain this, but it is just like you as well. It is possible. You just need to learn to tap into that and just be willing to push through the struggles and like, man, this is hard, but understand there's an end goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm totally like changing the subject right now, but any influencers who are particularly impactful for you, whether it's people or books or podcasts or whatever it is, but like who should these kids and their families be paying attention to right now that you think would be helpful?
So this is a little strange because like some of the people I really, really like, they're so authentic, and so they curse a lot, and so like it's kind of weird because
I think that's fine. Like we have this idea that one of my other guests said that too. Like we have this idea that we can't let kids hear these bad words, and I'm not talking about like 5-year-olds. I'm talking about teenagers who hear them, who use them, and I'm not saying that they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't either. But like, if they're going to get value from these people, real legitimate value, I'd rather hear the F-bomb coming from one of them than coming from your kid's peer who's smoking pot or drinking or whatever. Like, let's get some value out of it at least.
Eventually, I don't think I cuss that often. I've learned to like just siphon and just use other words that just display the exact same acronym to them. But like some of the people that I absolutely love following are people like Gary Vee. I think Gary Vaynerchuk, in terms of his content, is just out of this world. He's just gonna give you just a hard-nosed, this is what's going on, and like, life is not pretty all the time, but guess what? You just have to fight through.
And he's really good at presenting, like, we watched a video about him where he was talking about economic trends and everything. Like, he's so globally aware. His diversity of knowledge is amazing. He's not just an entrepreneur who works hard and is successful, but he knows a lot of shit. There we go, I said it.
A lot of people, I mean, one of my favorite podcasts was, the first ones I ever got into was The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. To me, such a positive person, such a positive message. I like Rich Roll a lot. Rich Roll
said him earlier.
Yeah. I think his podcast is really good. He has a very different like way of how he articulates his information. It's way more calming, but I like it. I'm a big fan of Pat Flynn.
I love Pat Flynn.
Pat Flynn is phenomenal.
He was like where I got my start. And Tim Ferriss and then Pat Flynn.
Yep.
Yeah. And Pat Flynn's such a good boy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, totally clean. You will never hear him say a bad word.
Yeah.
Totally clean and family-centric.
And just listening to all of these guys' struggles, it's amazing. Yeah. Like, I feel like I could be just like them. There is no... And, like, they reiterate it, and they're just like you. Joe Rogan's another.
Oh, yeah.
Love
Yeah,
Joe
absolutely.
Rogan stuff. It's just so different, and
he's such a curious person. Like, he approaches
Mm-hmm.
everything, even things he thinks are crazy and nuts, with curiosity.
And the guests that he puts on his podcast, especially on the people he does not know. Like, I've seen him in like interview poker players, and he doesn't know anything about gambling. The questions he asks and that's a field that I just understand a little better. It's phenomenal, and that like he just asks phenomenal questions, and just the more curious and the more you're willing to just ask those questions or learn to articulate and like phrase it and just put it in your own words, I mean, you get so much more out of it. And like, those are some of the people that I just follow. I mean, with Joe Rogan, he has the best guests. He has like famous people. So like, well, he had Kevin Hart recently, and that was an absolutely hilarious interview. And like, Kevin Hart's so motivating too.
I didn't listen to that one.
He is on his game 24/7, and just, man, like, but there's so many people out there that are motivating, and like, just go after those people. Like, just keep following them and trying to follow their lead, but throw your own twist to it, of course.
What I like about Joe Rogan is that for someone who's never listened to a podcast, and I'm not talking about Joe Rogan comedy. I don't even like comedy. Like, I don't get it. I don't laugh. I'm 10 steps behind. I'm not an auditory processor. But his podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience, he talks to everybody and has guests from every area that you can think of.
Aspect.
One of my favorite ones was the mushroom scientist one.
I never heard that one.
Oh my God.
You're
it was
to
like,
send that one over to me.
I will. It was incredible. I mean, I did not know that mushrooms could be interesting. But it was interesting. It was funny. I was like, wow. And the guy was a total whack job, but like my kind of whack job. But if you listen to Joe Rogan, he's done, what, thousands of episodes?
He does. Yeah,
I think
thousands.
he's at least over 1,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. But if you look, you will find
You will
something.
find something very interesting.
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Holy crap! How he's an astrophysicist, and if you listen to the first interview, he is attacking the astrophysicists that we did not land on the moon. It is like a guy that like grows up believing NASA and all that. Like, he made pretty much his life is space, and like for Joe Rogan to really, his questions are not attacking necessarily. It's just he wants to know more.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like, hey, this is my point of view, and prove me wrong. But he's willing to open up. I'm like, hey, I can be wrong. I'm more than, but this is why I think the way I think. And so like, he articulates so well in those podcasts and in every single one of those guests. I think he gets the most out of it because he's just, people understand from his point of view. Like, once people understand from their point of view, or from his point of view, you learn so much. The learning process is so much easier. It's so much faster because you know where they're coming from. And so
It's okay, and it's good to talk with people with different opinions.
Yeah.
Because it really does help you learn.
And,
it doesn't mean you have to agree with them.
And the tough thing is being the grown up and just like, hey, they're not going to give you the same level of respect and time as you, but don't let that defer you from like consistently trying to go out there and learn, because like it's so easy that like, oh, someone's going to put you down because like they only have their point of view. That's fine. Just understand that there are people like that doesn't detract. Like, you still get what you need from that person, like the information, understand why they think that, and then just put that on a subconscious level. Like, okay, put that in the back of your head. That's what, once you understand why they think that, then just you don't lose sleep over it anymore. Mm-hmm.
And you can
understand the point of view
to asking better questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I struggle, this whole question thing is something that I'm actually just starting to do myself. And I've been really sensitive to asking the right questions. And I've recently realized that's an art. I have to practice it. I'm not going to ask the perfect questions at first, and that's okay. I'll get there.
Yep.
I just have to keep trying. And for when you're asking yourself questions about anything, it's not in the why. You don't ask why. You reframe it with any of those other words. Why questions are very hard to answer. But when you reframe it with who, what, where, when, how, and you keep asking those questions, you'll get to the why.
Okay.
It's not that you won't get to the why. You'll get to the why, but it's actually like cognitively easier to answer those other questions.
Interesting. Okay.
So start with a why if you're asking a why question.
But
reframe
to break
with
down.
those others.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And just
very
keep
cool.
asking those other questions until you get to the why. And when you get to that, then you ask the next why and the next why.
And again, this is a learning process. You're not going to get this right away. It takes time, but if you're willing to apply it, you'd be surprised that, like, oh my gosh, my train of thought is just different. And then you just realize, oh my gosh, you're learning way faster than anybody else because you were willing to expand your brain, your horizon. And then from there, oh my gosh, how much more information are you going to try and obtain? And then that's going to set you apart from every other person in this world. But it's stuff you already like.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you should be searching for things you like, that interest you, keeps you alive. And so, like, why wouldn't you want to wake up early in the morning?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I love how, like, that was came back to that point. That's fabulous.
Absolutely.
I think maybe we'll wrap up.
Yeah, of course.
I see most of my people going into the room I'm supposed to be going into. But I'm so glad you came. It's Francois got here at like 7:30 this morning. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you woke up too.
Yeah,
It worked out.
And I was up late last night. I was up until like 12:30.
Yeah, I was up till 1. I was up till 1 in the morning. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You beat me. I go to bed at like 9 or 10, so normally.
I had 2 glasses of wine.
We walked to CVS.
Nice.
We got wine because here you can get wine in CVS.
You can,
where I live,
Vegas,
you can't.
Vegas is so... I love Vegas, so I live in Vegas as well. Yeah, you can just walk around. Oh, like, bars don't close. Ever.
Nothing really ever seems
closes.
to close.
Nothing closes.
Yeah.
And it's like 4:30 in the morning walking around with like an alcoholic beverage. No one's going to treat you like you're crazy.
Oh, that's right. You're allowed to
just walk
around with an open bottle or
kind of
whatever.
weird, yeah.
Yeah. You can do it outside too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
forgot that. I should have poured the wine before I left CVS. So I poured myself 1 glass of wine.
Nice.
I had about 3 sips. And the rest of it is still sitting on my nightstand because I fell asleep.
What kind of glasses, or what kind of wine did you have?
Just a black box cab. You know, the little boxes.
Cabs always works. Don't worry.
I'm usually Malbec, but they didn't have Malbec, so.
I'm a big Malbec.
Yeah.
I've gotten into Zinfandel, red
Oh,
Zinfandel.
really? I don't.
It's really bold
it.
and rich. Yeah, for some reason I like it. I'm glad we got into this wine conversation.
Yeah, perfect for, my teenagers.
Yeah, exactly.
And their parents.
Of course.
The best compliment I ever got as a coach was from one of my students' parents, and she said, "Thank you for that conversation. You just replaced my glass of wine." You're welcome.
That's awesome.
If you're listening, you're welcome. Well, thanks so much for coming. This was a really great conversation, and
hopefully this becomes a success. And you invite me back on the show.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Every person that I've interviewed, all 3 of you, like I want you all to come back because So
I'm
far.
only the third.
So far.
She has more guests lined up. Don't worry.
And I have a really, really, really exciting guest lineup.
I'm pretty excited to hear that one, actually.
Yeah.
I'm definitely checking that one out.
So proud of myself for making it happen.
Yeah.
And for making this happen.
course.
And for you being here and, like, saving me and my social awkwardness
Nah,
at that
not that
first
awkward.
bar party. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
With your Rubik's Cube.
Gotta do what I can.
So, yeah. All right. Well, hey, give me a hug. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next camera hug. It's nice when we can do this in person instead of,
I agree.
you know,
I
online.
thought it was important to do that.
All right.
Have a good
Bye,
one.
guys.
Bye.